thank you everyone for coming for this webinar on supporting people with dementia to lead more active lives. I'm Alex Roberts from the Learn to Swim team, and I will be hosting today's webinar. So if you have any questions specifically about the webinar, feel free to ask. But I'm also joined by Steve McFadden from the Alzheimer Society and Penny Kirkham from our Swim England's Health and Wellbeing team.
I'm Steve McFadden. I work for the Alzheimer Society, so I've been leading on this piece of work around physical activity and supporting people with dementia to lead more active lives in their community. I've been working on this project over the last 12 months now, and we've seen some amazing projects and amazing people that have come through the doors. So the idea of the webinar today, like Alex said, is just to share some of the pockets of good practice that we've seen. We do know that there are some really good examples of how people are making their activities dementia friendly, but we still want more people in the community to be doing this and supporting people with dementia at different levels, so that they can keep doing the activities they love. And if they love swimming, we want to be able to support them to keep doing that for as long as possible, so they can kind of stay part of their community and still stay connected to the things and the people around them that they love doing. So I'll go on to the first slide. It's just a little bit around why it's so important. So dementia is set to become the 21st century's biggest killer. So someone develops the condition in the UK every 3 minutes, and currently there is no cure. There are around 850,000 people today living with dementia in the UK. And what a big part of our role at Alzheimer Society is to make sure that the people currently living with dementia in the UK are supported and can continue to enjoy doing the things that they love in their communities and in society, and in this case swimming, but with the whole project overall it's across different activities and making sure that they have access and support to be able to keep doing those things. And generally Alzheimer Society is there to support organisations, projects, programmes and people who have questions about dementia, who have kind of anything that they want to run by us and relating to sport and physical activity. My role is here to kind of support you and work with organisations like Swim England to kind of help get the best information out to people. So I thought I'd just touch on a little bit. I never know how people's knowledge of dementia is and what information they do know. So apologies if you've already got a good understanding. That's great. But I thought I would just go into a little bit about what dementia is, just briefly, just to give a bit more context to the webinar as well. So the word dementia describes a group of symptoms that may include things like memory loss, difficulties with thinking, problem solving, language, often things like changing mood as well, and perceptions and behaviours. They can usually be quite small to begin with, but for someone with dementia, it can quite quickly become to have an effect on their daily life. So dementia is the kind of umbrella term that describes all different types of dementia. So Alzheimer's disease is the most common type of dementia, but there is over 100 different types of dementia. But yeah, Alzheimer's disease is the one that most people have heard of or will talk about because it is the most common. We've been working with Sport England and the Richmond group of charities, which is looking at a wider project around how people with different long-term health conditions can move more as part of their day-to-day life. So this project is a big part of that, and we're trying to support not just people living with dementia, but people with other long-term health conditions as well, and how they can move more and share best practice and learning across the whole sports sector, so that more people can benefit from this. The question we get asked quite a bit is, like in terms of the amount of different health conditions across society, why is this one so important? So for us, when we talk about being dementia friendly, we talk about dementia friendly is friendly for everyone. So dementia itself is such a complex and multifaceted condition that the things that will affect somebody through their dementia, like I mentioned, things like memory loss, it's perceptual challenges, may affect balance, and other things around long-term health conditions. So the process and the learning that you go through to become dementia friendly can actually just make you make your environment a better environment for lots of different people and a bit more welcoming for anyone with a long-term health condition. But just generally, a dementia-friendly environment is a more friendly environment, and nobody argues with going somewhere that's a more friendly environment. So that's how we try and talk about it in terms of dementia-friendly, and we'll go in a bit more detail in a minute on what that looks like practically and what that means. A big part of the work that we do here at Alzheimer Society is we involve people with dementia at all stages of our work. When developing the Dementia-Friendly Sport and Physical Activity Guide, we worked with partners like Swim England and other national governing bodies of sport, physiotherapy organisations, those kind of organisations, but we really wanted to get the input from people living with dementia and their carers, and understand some of the challenges that they face, and how we can take that insight and that learning to apply that into the guidance, so that more organisations and people can make those adaptations to make someone feel more welcomed or supported to continue doing those activities. So these were a couple of the main things that we took away from that insight. So we ran some focus groups, we spoke to people on different forums, we kind of visited projects where people with dementia were already participating, and just found out a bit more about what they liked in terms of physical activity, and asked them what some of their suggestions could be to people in terms of adaptations and things. The first one was, initially they came out as they were worried about other people's perceptions. So that was things like people not understanding their difficulties, a fear of not meeting the required standards. So if they're maybe not as fit or as active as they used to be, or didn't think they could kind of live up to what they thought, or what other people maybe going into a swimming pool or a leisure centre would be. And a lack of confidence to find activities that they feel comfortable taking part in. And confidence is the main barrier in terms of people living with dementia, getting out and being part of their community. And that was one of the things that they're just generally about being worried, which was the first kind of thing that we found. The second thing was around worrying about what to expect. So that was not knowing who to ask or speak to for additional support once in that environment. Thinking about how loud it can get with things like noise and background noise and loud environments. Things like leisure centres, swimming pools and gyms can get quite noisy, and I think a lot of people worry about that. And then, kind of, again, not knowing or misjudging the ability level of the activity. So, if the activity isn't advertised in the right way, they might think it is a beginner session, but the group might be a bit more advanced, and they might feel a bit uncomfortable there as well. Another thing was, obviously, memory problems are, for a lot of people living with dementia, a big thing, and the challenges that presents with it as well. So some of the things that they mentioned were forgetting where their locker is, so being unsure or forgetting how to use certain bits of equipment, confusing information or being able to find the right words to describe the items that they need. So in some instances, they might not remember the word for a changing room, and they might not be able to recall that, so they might call it something else, and kind of the challenges and the confusion that could be caused around memory problems. And then there's problems with kind of mobility and navigating around any facility. So these could be things like signage not being very clear, so people weren't sure where to go, difficulty recognising certain places, and just a general fear of getting lost. And none of that is kind of groundbreaking insight in a way, but it's really important to get the perceptions of people with dementia that fed into this work. But as you probably know by that, they're not just applicable to people living with dementia, these challenges. They're actually, these will be challenges that other people with other long-term health conditions and people from different backgrounds and things will kind of face that. So we just thought it really important to highlight it, and actually it's not just about memory loss. There's so many characteristics and conditions and impairments that come with dementia, that it means that if you're doing things to address these and becoming dementia friendly, then you're just making it right for everyone. Yeah, a saying that we generally have is if you get it right for people with dementia, you tend to get it right for everyone. So that was some of the insight that we gathered, which was really interesting to get the points of view of people to feed into that. Then I just wanted to talk to you a little bit around the guide, so the guidance piece itself. So the Dementia-friendly sport and physical activity guide, so we launched it in February this year with some industry kind of leaders. We had, like I said, we had key partners helping us pull the guide together to make sure it was applicable to lots of people across different settings. We wanted to make it, and the feedback that we got from partners who kind of support like Swim England and things like that was it had to be practical. It had to be practical for people to be able to pick it up, take some learnings from it, and be able to adapt that into what they are doing. So the idea of the guidance itself is that it's a practical guide that can help anyone that is delivering any kind of physical activity, whether that be swimming or any kind of walking physical activity classes, anything like that. It gives them the information to help them become more dementia friendly, to adapt, just so they can provide more support to people. So within, as you can see on the slide here, we kind of break the guide into three main sections. So we call them the 3 Ps. So we talk about people, program, and place. And I'll go into a bit more detail on each of those in a moment. But yeah, the guide has kind of checklists with key actions on these 3 areas and specific guidance on how you can make changes in each of these areas just to start considering people with dementia in the work that you're doing and how different things can affect people. So I'll talk a little bit more about each of the sections just so you get a better idea of what that looks like. So the people section is around kind of awareness, training and support. People, as you're aware, are so important, whether that's coaches, instructors, volunteers. They're a huge part of people's experience in being physically active. And actually they've got a really big role to play in encouraging people to stay active or to get active. One thing that we encourage everyone to do is to become a dementia friend. So Dementia Friend is an Alzheimer Society program, so it looks at giving people a better understanding of dementia to inspire them to take action within their community to help people with dementia. So it's the biggest ever initiative to change people's perceptions of what dementia is and transforming the way that everyone across the nation thinks, acts and talks about dementia. I'm just getting a bit of background noise on the line. If everyone can just mute their phone, please, that would be great. Thank you. So there's over 2.9 million dementia friends in the UK, and when you become a dementia friend, you learn a bit more about what dementia is, and you understand the condition a bit more, so that if you're working in the community and you come across people with dementia, you've got a bit more understanding and patience in terms of how to help them and how to have a conversation with them. So to become a dementia friend, there's a few different ways that you can do it. You can watch videos online, you can go to face-to-face sessions in your community, so there's lots of different ways of doing it. And all you need to do is you pick up 5 key messages that we talk about with dementia friends, and then you commit to going away and taking an action. So whether that is something as simple as wearing your dementia friend's badge so that people know that you are a dementia friend and they can maybe feel comfortable in coming to talk to you if they want to take part in swimming or if they're wanting to start swimming, or you can go as far as kind of setting something up like a dementia-friendly swimming offer in your local leisure centre or whatever it is. So that's a little bit about Dementia Friends, and with that, so any organisation and any individual can become Dementia Friends. So if anyone's got any questions about what that is or what that looks like, then more than happy for people to come to send questions or to ask for any information after. We always say it's good to have someone at a senior level within organisations to become a Dementia Friends champion. So that means that they can then deliver Dementia Friends session across their organisation. So that just to give people a better understanding of what it is, get people talking about dementia more, so that it takes away that stigma from it, and just creates a better environment for people to feel comfortable with that. Generally, we talk with the people section. We talk about creating a supportive environment. So wherever that is, whether that's poolside or in reception or when people are coming into a new environment, it's about being patient, being understanding, being open to conversations with people, so that they just feel comfortable being in a different environment that maybe they're not familiar with. And then we look in this section to signpost people to the various different support that is out there. So yeah, there's lots of different support. We've got a list of useful organisations at the back of the guide, and generally we've got there's a national dementia helpline. So anyone who is affected by dementia who may have any questions can ring up the helpline and ask for support and guidance for them locally as well. So that's a little bit about the people section. The next section we talk about is program. So that is looking at how different people can adapt their programs and make specific considerations to keep people active with dementia. So we look at, one thing we say is for people to look at what they already offer. So you may have offers within your facility that are you can make some small changes to and promote them out to people affected by dementia to come in and enjoy. There may be a need to set something up specifically if there's a large enough group of people with dementia in your local area. So those are the kind of things we look at in this section. I'll go on to some of the case studies in a moment which are swimming specific because I thought that would be quite helpful. But actually there are a lot of case studies in this section of the guide that looks at things like walking football, seated activity classes, a real range of different activities. And I would say the learnings from those activities and the adaptations can be applied across any activity at all. So there's some things that are that some people have used in a walking football session, for example, but actually the learning could be applied to or to any other activity that people do. So it's good to have a little flick through and see what other people are doing, and then have a think about what works for you and whether that's something you could incorporate in your work. One of the things that came out of the research and the work that we did was around designing social and respite opportunities for people with dementia and their carers as well. So actually the social side of any physical activity is arguably as important as the actual activity itself. We found that people, in terms of swimming projects, people will come to the leisure centre beforehand, they will have a cup of tea, they'll have a chat to people if it's a specific group that they come to every week. They will then go for their swim, they'll come out and they'll potentially have lunch afterwards, and it can be a real kind of focal point of the week. And we just say in terms of designing that offer and what that looks like, it's really important to make sure that that is kind of recommended to people as well. It can often be the thing that people look forward to in a week, or maybe the only activity that people do get out to in a week. So it's really important to kind of make the most of that and kind of provide that information for them, whether that's for their carers as well, if their carers wanted to kind of be in that environment. So it's just really important to consider that and think about that as well. We want people to be creative and innovative with the work that they do and the programs that they have. With what we say with dementia, every person is different and every dementia is different, and actually with that there's no kind of one size fits all in terms of a program. So we want people to be creative and innovative, work with local people with dementia to try and find what works and find solutions to any barriers and things that people may have. But yeah, people won't get it right straight away, but we don't want that to be a barrier to people. If you're doing it in the right way and looking to find solutions, then that's really important for people. We talk here about engaging with local services. So we have across the country, there's Alzheimer Society staff across the country in a number of different locations with slightly different roles, but there is lots of local services that are there for people for you to access and talk to. They have access to local people affected by dementia, and it might be that they're looking for activities to do in their local community, so it might be something that you can kind of link to them. We have a Dementia Connect directory online, which you can kind of put in a postcode and find out what activities are around the area where you are, and then from that you can pick up conversations and see whether there's anything you can develop from that. We also have dementia-friendly communities across the country as well, so they are local communities that work together, so whether that be a town, a village or a city that brings lots of different organisations together to look at how they can work together to make their area more dementia friendly. And actually with lots of different partners working in those communities, again, they have access to organisations that are working with people affected by dementia, and actually it could be a really good start of a conversation if you are looking at setting up some kind of offer for people living with dementia, to have those conversations locally with those communities and see what's already out there, and what you might be able to kind of work on and pick up. But yeah, this whole kind of program section is looking at why and how it's really important to learn from other activities and learn from those examples of good practice that is already out there. And there's still lots of, since the guide was launched, we're still getting some really good examples coming in with new adaptations and new learning that we're trying to kind of get the messages out and share as well. So if there's anything that you are doing in terms of dementia-friendly swimming or any learnings that you've got, then yeah, please do share them with us, because we're really interested to see the stories of what's happening, and again try and use that and help that shape any future work that we do. So that's the program section. And then the final section that we kind of talk about is play. So this is looking at the physical environment. So we look at things like there's a self-guided accessibility audit at the back of the guide. So that looks at different areas of a leisure centre or a different environment. So things like the parking area and some of the adaptations you could potentially make to the parking area, because it's obviously not just when people get to the pool. There's a lot of steps before people physically get into the pool. Things like the entrance and reception, the navigation around a leisure facility, those kind of bits. And then there is a section in there as well around swimming and poolside as well. So that was working with Swim England and the guidance that they have with things like improving signage. A couple of examples is they marked kind of footsteps on the floor to guide people to find the pool and the changing rooms. They had kind of freestanding pop-up signage that was used, and yeah, a few different things around supporting with lockers and stuff like that. So there's some really good guidance in there as well. Be aware of the potential barriers and challenges that people have. So again, the guide gives lots of different ideas around. We talked a little bit about the insight from people living with dementia and what challenges they face. But if there is people coming to your pool that are living with dementia, just kind of have that conversation with them and ask what their challenges might be, and figure out ways of how together you can support them to overcome those. It's often really, really small changes that can make a massive difference. So that is, yeah, understanding kind of barriers and challenges, and then looking at things like the signage and the lighting in the facility, just to make it easy for people to navigate around. And yeah, then looking at poolside and things like that. So I wanted to just go on to a few examples, a few case studies, just to give you a bit of an idea of some of the people that we've been working with or some of the projects that we've seen, to give you a bit more information. So you'll see the slide on the screen is a lady called Tracey Shorthouse, she's living with dementia. She's a retired nurse, so she's been working really closely with me on the project and has been to speak at several conferences and events and things with us, and she's a real advocate for being physically active. And the reason I put, so Tracey's main kind of physical activity routine is going to the gym. She goes to the gym kind of 2 or 3 times a week. But most recently, she's actually had an injury to her foot, where she's broke one of the bones in her foot, so she's not able to go to the gym anymore. And she hadn't been swimming for, I think she said 15 years. She hadn't been swimming for a long time, and she was a bit worried. She was a bit concerned about whether, as her dementia developed, whether she would have forgotten how to swim, or whether there was a real kind of confidence issue and lack of confidence in terms of going to that pool. She went to her local pool, and she found it quite busy and quite loud, and it might have just been the time of day that she went, or a conversation with someone in the leisure centre might have helped to kind of identify some of the quieter times when she might have been able to go. But she's found a local pool within a hotel. that works for her, and everyone is different, so lots of different things work for different people. But Tracey now, swimming is for her at the moment, while she's still got her injury. It's a really good way of getting out, continuing with her activity that she does. She gets out and about in the community still, rather than being sat at home, not being able to go out to the gym. So she's found a lot of kind of release in swimming and getting active, and it's having a real benefit on her well-being. She seems really, from her tweets and messages that she sends over to me, she seems really proud that she's actually picked up swimming again, and she's really enjoying it. So there's a lot of value there for people to swim, and I know there's lots of information out there on the various benefits that swimming has. And Tracey's just one example of how that's really worked for her. I thought it would be worth touching on a little bit around the dementia-friendly swimming that Swimming England have done. Again, I'm not sure if you know too much information about it, but I thought it would worth just touching on the work that is already out there. So as I said earlier, when we were developing the Dementia-Friendly Sport and Physical Activity Guide, we had key partners feeding into it. Swimming England were one of those partners and shared their learning from this Dementia-Friendly Swimming project to how we could kind of build that into the guide and share some of the learnings within that as well, which was really useful. But on the internet, on the Swimming England website, I think it's /dementia-friendly, you can find kind of dementia fact sheets and information and a few case studies and stories and things like that that give you a bit more information about the work that has been done specifically related to swimming. And some of the learnings and projects that people have had from that, and I just wanted to pull out one of the case studies from that website that I thought was really good and gives a really good insight into the impact that you as individuals and organisations can have on people with dementia. So there was a case study on there that talks about a lady called Alice who's living with dementia. So she learned to swim from a very young age, but after her diagnosis, she'd avoided swimming. She probably felt that, again, that all those kind of issues we talked about earlier, with things like confidence and maybe feeling that she's not able to do anymore. So she avoided it completely. There was, I think, a conversation that she had with a local activities coordinator, encouraged her to take part in dementia-friendly swimming sessions. And then since then, she's been going once a week with other residents of a care home, just so that they can enjoy being part of the pool again. Now, interesting, when reading this, Alice wasn't actually swimming in the pool. She said that, I think the quote that she said was that she has difficulty walking, and she actually uses the pool as a way to kind of walk up and down rather than swim. So it's an adaptation of using the pool in a way that supports her to still get out and visit the place where she's probably been to many times in her life, a place where she feels comfortable, and just adapting swimming so that she's still getting in the pool, she's still getting some physical activity. It's helping her manage her pain, and kind of gives her the support and kind of sense of community that she needs to still be part of something. And it's those kind of adaptations that out in the community that take everyone's individual kind of ability and condition into consideration, so that they can make the changes to make sure that people can still get the physical benefits of activity, but also that social engagement and out and being part of the community. And I think all of that probably wouldn't have happened unless that coordinator had encouraged her to take part in those activities. And I think that's a really important message, that every person's got a really important role to play, whether that's just supporting one person to get out and get back into the pool, or support someone to continue coming to the swimming sessions if they're having some challenges. So yeah, I think it's really important that it's not just big organisations that have a role to play, but actually every individual, whether that's coaches, instructors, lifeguards, anything like that. It's really important that they understand about dementia and how they can support people. So that's just a little bit on the Swimming England work. I think Penny's going to touch a little bit on some of the work around wellbeing after this. But yeah, one of the case studies that we actually featured within the guide came from the Swim England work. So we just looked at a local leisure centre here where they'd looked at they'd taken Swim England's guidance. They'd looked at some of their own work. They'd worked with our local dementia-friendly communities officer and kind of designed a programme that worked for them in their community. So they kind of improved the selection of swim aids that they had on offer in the pool, so they had different swimming aids there. They updated the signs in the changing village to make it easier for people to navigate around. They introduced things that would help people kind of find their lockers. So locker saddles were kind of introduced to help people identify which locker was theirs if they kind of forgot their locker number or had trouble kind of sourcing that. They built those social activities into the programme that are kind of hugely important in terms of the enjoyment of coming back week on week. And they provided things like wider lanes for people who lack confidence to give them a bit more of a safer environment. And there's been some other adaptations where people have kind of made sure that their lanes next to the side as part of the dementia-friendly swimming group, so that they've got something to hold on to if they feel uncomfortable at any stage. There's lots of different things that will already exist out there. It's nothing new. It's just applying it to support people with dementia, really. So that's a little bit of the that's a few of the case studies that we've pulled out that we've heard of. I'm sure there's a lot more out there, but there's lots of information out there now where more and more coaches, instructors, organisations can kind of take this, reach out locally within their communities, and try and find ways of supporting people with dementia to keep swimming. Because, like the lady Alice and others, there's lots of ways that you can adapt swimming to make it suitable for people to make sure that they're enjoying themselves and safe in the water. So that's there are a few really good examples of that. I just wanted to just towards the end, in terms of how you can find out more information. So swimming.org/dementia-friendly is where the dementia fact sheet and some other information is on there. So that's all the kind of dementia-friendly swimming program that Swim England led on, which has been really good to look at and really good to kind of see how that's developed and then fed into this work, and we'll hopefully keep developing to support people with dementia. Our team email address is programpartnerships@alzheimers.org.uk. So that's if you're interested in finding any information more about this project or the resources and things that we have. But I'd suggest the best thing to do would be to look at alzheimers.org.uk/sport. You can download the guide on there for free, and you can request physical copies of the guide if you want for your local organisation on there as well. But yeah, I think the main takeaway for me would be to go and have a look at that page in terms of all the activity around dementia-friendly activity. There's lots of information there to help you kind of learn a bit more and help you start to think about how you can adapt or how you can support people that you work with, whether that's people affected by dementia or even staff and colleagues that may be affected by dementia in their personal life, and how you can kind of signpost and support them to find the right information that they need as well, which is a really big part of what we're trying to do as well. We're trying to make sure that anyone affected by dementia has the right access to the information and support that they might need through what can be really tricky times. You can go away and become a dementia friend if you're not already. For those of you that are, thank you. And yeah, if there's any examples of anyone becoming a dementia friend and then kind of putting that learning into practice, again, we'd love to hear those kind of bits of information. Download the guide online. We've got a couple of videos. We don't have any swimming specific videos, but there's a video of Tracey, who I mentioned earlier, talking about her experiences of using her local gym. And even though it's not swimming specific, it does put into context some of her challenges and how small changes can really help, and the importance of this piece of work, not just to Tracey, but hundreds of thousands of others like her as well. And I guess the last thing to leave you with is just mainly that small things can make a massive difference to people. Just that little bit of extra thought and consideration, patience and understanding can really go a long way. So just kind of hope that lots of you kind of go away and I guess think about this topic in a bit more detail and see whether there's whether there's ways that you can support people with dementia in your local area. So I think that's most of the information. I didn't want to bombard you with too much information initially. Obviously, if people want to continue conversations with us, then please do get in contact. But yeah, I haven't been able to see any questions coming in because I've got the presenter slides, but I'm not sure if Alex has seen any questions that have come in, or if anyone's got any questions to type them in the chat box. I'll be happy to stick around and answer anything that pops up.
That was great. Thank you, Steve. We did have one question come in, which was, we have set up a dementia-friendly swim at 3 pools in the High Peak, but over the past 3 months, no one has attended at 2 of the sites. So they did a questionnaire for people living with dementia and their carers, and what we found was the biggest barrier was the hassle of getting undressed and dressed again. Have you any experience or insight about how we can overcome this?
Yeah, I guess so. The one thing that, and again with the guidance, and one thing that we're trying to do with the actual facilities themselves is to make sure that their physical environment is right. And a lot of the pools with some really good programs have kind of changing villages rather than separate male and female changing rooms, or have changing places, toilets which are bigger, more accessible toilets, which means a carer could go in and support someone with dementia to be part of that. So I'm not sure if there's any kind of unisex or accessible changing on site, which just allows people with dementia and their carers to get changed in the same space. And I think that has come up quite a few times, and that's why we're trying to work with organisations and the leisure facilities that have kind of pools in different areas that can be a barrier for people. Some places have had like buddying systems where it's like volunteers have supported people into the pool, but also kind of supported with the changing area and things like that if they need any guidance. Everyone's dementia is different, and it does affect people in different ways. But the first thing to do would be to have a conversation, I think, with the facility and find out if there's any way of kind of having that space where carers and people with dementia can get changed in the same space, to take away a lot of the worry and the stress around kind of going into separate changing areas and things like that. So that would be one thing that I would say initially. Okay, great, thank you. And another one was, can you confirm what the directory is that you put your postcode in and it will give you all the activities in your area? Yeah, of course. It's called the Dementia Connect online directory. I've actually got a little thing from, so it's alzheimers.org.uk/Dementia Connect. So that is basically a listing of services in anyone's local area. So you can search by a postcode and find out what is out there, whether that's personally or looking for activities to link to as part of your professional role. But with that as well, there is also a space for people to kind of request for their activities to be listed. So if you've got a regular activity in your swimming pool, which is a dementia-friendly swimming session, then you can list that on there as well, so people can search for that. So it's a really good tool actually that is developing with our local services quite a lot at the moment. So there's lots of really good stuff on there.
Okay. Great, so they're the only 2 that came through the chat box. Someone has asked if we can send around the presentation, but that will be sent round afterwards with a recording of this, so that's not a problem at all. If anyone does have any questions, your microphones have been muted. Just go into WebEx and unmute them. If you don't have any questions, we will carry on and hand over to Penny.
Which is my job. I'm just finding the button to hand over to Penny. Just give me 1 second. Alex, I can't see Penny, so I'm going to hand it back to you to hand over to Penny, if that's all right.
Yeah, no problem at all. There you go, Penny.
Thank you, and thank you, Steve. I'm just going to run through a few slides now on the water wellbeing model. Apologies to those of you that have already heard about it, but obviously for those of you that haven't, it will either spark some interest or just give you some information on what Swim England are currently doing in the health and wellbeing sector. Just give me a second. Okay, so hopefully you can all see my screen now. You can see the presentation come up. Hopefully everyone can also hear me okay. If there are any problems, just type into the chat button, and hopefully Alex will let me know if there are any issues. Swim England's water wellbeing. So I'm just going to briefly mention this document, so the health and wellbeing benefits of swimming. This was pulled together by our Health Commission on the benefits of swimming, and it's about a 150-page long document, unfortunately. I mean, it's not an easy bedtime read at all, but it's pulled together all of the evidence out there on swimming and health. It also managed to highlight all the gaps in research for us on certain health conditions. Now, there is a shortened version of this which does kind of round up all the information that's provided in the larger document. I've put the link to the document at the bottom, so feel free to have a read of that. I mean, it's really useful for things like funding bids, if you're thinking of putting in a funding bid or anything like that and needed to pull some research specifically around aquatic activity or swimming. Again, if you've worked with Swim England closely in the past, you may have already seen the Free Frontier model. It's based on insight, and it ensures our projects and programmes are structured. So they take into account a number of factors, and let's ensure that we bring in new audiences while also retaining existing audiences. So it's split into 3 frontiers. So Frontier 1 is all about increasing swimming's visibility and relevance, and really this focuses mainly on like promotions and marketing and making sure we're getting those right to the right people. So what motivations people have to swim, finding those out, and then ensuring that the promotions and marketing are structured in a way that it's really good for them to be able to say, yes, that's something that I want to do. Frontier 2 is the actual environment itself, so improving the actual environment so that when people come into a leisure facility, they have a good experience from the offset. And then Frontier 3, so what's actually happening in the water. So ensuring that there's something tailored in the water that caters to different and specific needs. So this, the reason we've got this slide in there is because it's been used as a basis to develop the water wellbeing model for us. So what is the water wellbeing model? Really it's made up of a variety of components, and it's really there to support leisure centres to become more accessible to people with long-term health conditions. And it follows on really nicely from Steve's slides, purely because the start of this work was around the Dementia-friendly swimming project that we were funded by the Department of Health. And this piece of work has now progressed to include all people with long-term health conditions rather than really focusing on one specific health condition. As part of this work, we will work with sites to incorporate all the different components, and that really starts with a site review and developing an action plan with the site. So our health and wellbeing team will sit down with the leisure site and scope out what the site currently has in place and really pull out the gaps for that site, and that then develops an action plan and really helps us to then decide how much support and we need to offer the site to get things in place. We then look at the delivery of some training, and this training is for all front of house staff, and that includes like receptionists, lifeguards, leisure attendants, just anyone really that would come into contact with someone who's using the facility who has a long-term health condition. The training is currently face-to-face delivery. It's about 2.5 to 3 hours long, but we are currently in the process of moving that training online because we've realised how hard it is for staff to release, leisure centres to release staff for periods of time. And really that training focuses on long-term health conditions, really creating some understanding and empathy for the staff on things to be considerate about when people are coming into the leisure facility with long-term health conditions. The next stage would be to do an environmental audit, and I know Steve has briefly touched on sort of the environment for people with dementia. It's just doing a whole assessment of the site, and that's right from the car park right through to the changing facilities and poolside. It's not a pass or a fail, it's just more of an awareness raising tool. So for example, some of our sites have noticed that the signage isn't probably as clear as it could be from reception through to the changing area. So in order to make that better, they've just literally laminated some paper and just made the signage really clear as to where people need to go once they move from reception area. And we're not asking you to knock the leisure centres down and rebuild them. It is more of an awareness raising tool. And then the 4 boxes underneath. So these are the different programs that we've been working with sites on to incorporate to give that frontier 3. So looking at what's actually happening in the water. I'll start with Pool Pod. So we've recently received some funding from the London Marathon Trust to fund 20 pool pods across the country. And a pool pod is just a more accessible way of getting into the water, and it helps save a little bit of dignity for people with mobility and issues and disabilities, rather than having to ask someone to use the hoist. They can use the pool pod themselves. It's all self-managed by the individual. And so they can get themselves into the water and then again get themselves back out of the water. There's marketing materials being provided and supported by Swim England, and then at Pool Pod are offering training and a manual for the sites to be able to use that correctly, safely. The other programme is exercise referral. So we've been sitting down with the sites that we're working with and looking at their GP referral programme and how it works. And then seeing how we can incorporate aquatic-based exercises into that rather than just land-based. And one of the ways that we have done that is by developing a qualification called Aquatic Activity for Health. And the aim of that qualification is to bridge land-based exercise with water-based exercise. So it is for level 3 GP referral instructors, because we're assuming they've got all the health knowledge and it is just an add-on in terms of the water-based information and knowledge. And it gives them, hopefully, the knowledge and confidence to prescribe water-based exercises for people with long-term health conditions. And then on the back of that, they will receive exercise cards, which they can then take back with them to the site level. And just as a reminder of some of the exercises they can do with individuals for different health conditions. The third one is Learn to Swim. So the sites that have adult Learn to Swim sessions, we're looking at how we can make these more accessible for people with health conditions. The ways we've done that, we've got some online training. The IS have got a CPD for swim teachers that all swim teachers can access. I think it's about £15 per person. And then we've developed a guidance on health conditions in swimming. So this guidance is an A5 laminated document, and it is aimed for swim teachers to use on poolside. And it's got every single health condition in there that you can think of. And it's not by any way prescriptive, it's more of an awareness thing. So if a swim teacher did want to work with someone, say with I don't know, a knee injury or a hip injury or something like that, it's just got things to be aware of, swim-specific strokes that would benefit that individual, and then things also to be aware of, so things not to do with that individual. And then finally, Good Boost. So we're working with a company called Good Boost, and that is a tablet-based system in the water, and it's all based around artificial intelligence. So in a Good Boost group session, each individual would have their own tablet. They would all complete an initial assessment form through the tablet, and then the artificial intelligence would develop a personalised programme for that individual based on the feedback they gave during that initial questionnaire. The tablet is very clear to use. There's really clear videos and guidance on how to do the exercising in the water, and the sessions can be run by a volunteer, a level 2 swim instructor or a level 2 gym instructor. they can sort of lead those sessions because the artificial intelligence does all of the sort of prescribing work for them. And then after each exercise, it asks the pain levels, and then at the end of the program, there'll be the artificial intelligence will then develop a new program for the next session for that individual based on the feedback from that very first session. If you did want to know more information about Good Boost, I think Ben's on the WebEx, so you might be able to ask some questions towards the end. Or I have also put our health inbox email at the end, so please email us with any further information about any of those programs that you may wish to have. All of our sites receive ongoing support from Swim England, so that's recruitment marketing. We've got case studies of things that have worked well, what haven't worked well at different sites, and then we offer further training. So we've got webinars which we're obviously putting on different health conditions, and then any further training that we become aware of, we'll forward that onto all of our sites as well. And then we just ask the sites that are part of the water wellbeing model just to do a bit of data collection for us, and then come to some learn and share days to learn to share all of the good and bad learnings with the other sites, so we can really get this right. There's just some nice pictures here, and then a link to a YouTube video below on what Good Boost is. It just really brings it to life a bit, so you can see the individuals on poolside with their tablets in watertight covers, and then some have got equipment as well. But yeah, I just thought this would really bring it to life for you, and feel free to click the link to watch the video as well. It's a bit more difficult to play videos through WebEx, so it's probably easier just to give you the link so you can have a look at that in your own time. And then some of the barriers to land-based exercise that you wouldn't necessarily get in the water, or that the water would help alleviate. We're working with a large range of partners. Hopefully this will keep increasing who we're working with, mainly charities, and we're working with them all in a kind of different capacity. Yeah, some of these charities we're working really closely with, and they're signposting some of their service users to the water wellbeing sites because they know that the water wellbeing sites have gone through all the procedures for the environmental assessment, the training and everything else, and they know that there's going to be good qualified staff there able to support and assist their service users. We've worked really closely with the ATACP, so the Aquatic Therapy Association of Chartered Physiotherapists, and they've helped us create the Aquatic Activity for Health qualification, and a majority of the tutors are also made up from the members of the ATACP, so we've got that sort of backing from them in that respect. So once we've worked with a site, this is what we'd hope the patient sort of journey would look like, the patient pathway. So the patient comes through the referral, they'll have initial assessment at site level. They'd be offered the gym if that was the most appropriate activity for them, but also there'd be aquatic activity available for those that we knew the instructor would know was appropriate for. There are the three different programs, but the sites don't have to do all three. They can pick and choose. So some of our sites are just doing the learn to swim, or some sites are just doing exercise referral, and then some are doing 2 or 3 if they want to. So it is a bit of a pick and mix. They can pick and choose which of those programs they think are going to work best for those at site. So that kind of rounds it off. I do appreciate that was a very quick whistle-stop tour of the work that we are doing. So if you have got any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Or if you feel like you need more information on some specific sections, then please feel free to give us an email to the health inbox, and the email's at the bottom, and someone will get back to you with all the information that you need.